Hey Mo,
Hey, Ricky.
the doctor is in.
Yes, 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 we are. Happy Wellness Woosah Wednesday. And happy National Doctors Day to
Happy
all.
National. That's what I should say to you. Happy
Oh,
National Doctor's Day to you.
well, thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to serve and to be able to do this. I woke up this morning thinking there isn't anything else in the world I'd rather be doing, no matter what's going on. And looking back at last year, we were all in the middle of a pandemic and it was crazy. And all of our pictures were us wearing 3 and 4 masks, and all you could see were these eyes that just looked terrified, like what's going on in the world. But here we are coming out on the other side and talking about really important things with really amazing people.
I know.
So it's a good show today. This is one of my favorite topics. I love it.
It can be
Let's do
great.
it.
And it's our 102nd show, Mo. It's almost our birthday. April
Oh,
15th is our birthday, right? For 2 years.
wow.
But yeah, we're so excited, right?
That's crazy.
Because
Yeah.
so we have a great show today. And I kind of named it, how can we ease the pain, discomfort, and anxiety of cancer treatment? Like, how can we do it? And we have our lovely medical advisory board person, Dr. Aisha Chilcote. So happy Doctors Day to you too. And we have our friend Sue Weldon, who is the founder, and she's a breastie, founder of Unite for Her, doing incredible things for our breasties. And we have our buddy Valencia, who is going to maybe teach us some yoga. We'll see. So the last time I was with Valencia, we went to the congressional softball game and they came out to take a picture and she did a split on the field on the baseball mound. So you
Wow.
never know what you're going to get from Valencia. We love her dearly, my
I,
TNBC sister.
I'm gonna go ahead and say she's in a league of her own. Oh, there it
Yeah.
is. But don't,
Come
right?
on. She is. So,
I had to do it.
so we have a great show to talk about integrated medicine and how it can help us in so many ways. So I'm going to let Sue start, and then we'll
Yeah.
introduce herself, and then we can bring the doc in and bring Valencia and let Valencia talk about how yoga saved her or held her. So.
Yeah, for sure. What a great panel. And thank you for having me on again, Ricky, and just love being with you. Yeah, integrative care, supportive care. You hear either integrative, supportive, complementary. They're all ways to support you during treatment and beyond, during a cancer diagnosis, and really for so much in our life, right? Complementary care is a staple, that whole patient type of healing. And at Unite for Her, we treat women and men with breast cancer going through with $2,000 worth of treatments that help them form their own wellness plan. And they get to pick and choose what feels good for them. Today, we're going to listen to a little bit of yoga. That was actually something I did when I was diagnosed. Nutrition, whole food nutrition, acupuncture, oncology massage, Reiki, yoga, sexual health counseling, regular counseling, fresh food coming to the home in forms of vegetable share boxes. So much can be an integrative care program, right? There's not one size fits all. There's not one magic bullet, right? There's a combination of ways that you can end up really feeling relief from side effects and symptoms without taking more drugs or prescriptions through this type of integrative care, right? And you get to sort of feel that program. What Unite for Her does is that we introduce our patients, those with breast and ovarian cancer, to the wellness program at Unite for Her, that integrative care program, and we treat them for a full year. And if you are living with metastatic disease, we never leave your side. Every 6 months, you get to renew what we call a wellness passport. That wellness passport has all those therapies that I just talked about where they get to pick and choose. But first, they get to go to a wellness conference to learn about them, because that's the key. It's the education. And I didn't know anything about acupuncture when I was diagnosed, and nor that it could help my cancer side effects and symptoms, or yoga, or whole food nutrition, and how it would help me so much with mitigating so much of the side effects that I had. Herbs and spices were our medicine cabinet of years past, right? And I leaned in to learn about all this. So that education is key. And that's what we give to those that we serve. And this year, we're going to be serving over 3,000 women and men with breast and ovarian cancer. And over 1,100 of those living with metastatic disease are on ongoing care with us. And we're honored to be able to continue to get that support so that we can fund every one of those women $2,000 worth of care. That's a quick little intro of what Unite for Her is and our mission. And it was what I lived. I mean, it was what I lived, going on 18 years, which I can't get over. And that would be May the 4th, right? And I was a broken woman then, and I leaned into what our friend here is doing, that side, Valencia, into yoga. And it wasn't the yoga that you pull your foot up over your head and you wear those cute pants. That's not the yoga. It's all about the power of breath and understanding how to get the negative chatter out of your mind and being able to quiet the mind. We know that emotional strain can cause physical symptoms, and you have enough going on when you're going through a cancer diagnosis and treatment and beyond. So how do we give you the tools, right? Unite for Her gives our women and men the tools, so that we can meet them where they are. So thanks for letting me share. You were my first phone call, Ricky, when we went national, and here we are, friends today, and still doing great work together. And just really appreciate you connecting me with your network.
Great. A year ago, yeah, you were only in Philly, and look at that. Wow, isn't that great?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Let me jump in here and say that yes, being outside the Philadelphia area, we're just outside of Philly. I practice at Grandview Health in Sellersville, and my patients have really reaped the benefits of the program for Unite for Her. Because it encompasses so much of the things that patients say they wish their doctors had told them about. They wish they knew that these would be some of the side effects. They wish they knew how tired they would feel. They wish they knew how to get their life back, and what are the tools to do that, and do health systems provide those tools? And at a time when we're really scrambling to just provide the basics of really good care, and get patients in trials and get them through their diagnosis, get them through their surgery, the big picture and the whole patient can sometimes feel like it gets lost. I say feel like, because it never really does, but it can feel like it gets lost. And this program fills such a huge gap for patients that it's pretty wonderful. Dr. Aisha, Sue said that she 18 years ago, she was broken. Tell us about some of the needs that you see, and some of the work that you do, and some of the gaps I think that we need to address with integrative care, and how your work does that.
I think so. Hi, everybody. So I'm a naturopathic doctor. And just to address your question, I think, when people are first diagnosed, it's this huge shock. There's a lot of questions, a lot of anxiety, a lot of emotions around it. And I think it's also really important to note this whole grounding process that has to happen. And as people get connected to certain resources, it could be through a book, it could be through a support group, it could be through yoga, it could be through physical activity. I think that the pathway is so different for different people to find their way from brokenness to feeling more whole. And I love what Sue just mentioned about that negative chatter in the mind, because I think that mental component is probably the strongest thing that we have to kind of harness in, so that we can really embrace healing. And where it starts first in the mind, right? Thinking healthy thoughts. It's one of the things that I always encourage patients to do. Think healthy, because when we think the negative, and it's very difficult to not, but the more that we can train ourselves to do that, we can actually rewire the patterns in our brain, and we can invite more healing in. So, thanks.
Wow. What do you think are some of the best things to do? I mean, obviously yoga, like what other things would you recommend to patients? Like,
I think
acupuncture scares me. I had it once and I was like waiting to get stuck. And I didn't really get it, but
yeah. I had a tremendous fear of needles my whole entire life. And then when I started getting acupuncture, I think what did it for me was allowing somebody to try it on me, like try 1 or 2 needles first, so that I could see that this doesn't really hurt. Then once I got through that part, letting them finish the rest of, needling me with whatever points. But once I started to feel different, because the first time I had acupuncture was after a car accident, like 20 years ago, and someone suggested it. So I was already in pain, and I tried everything, and I was on all these pain meds, and so I said, okay, I'll try it. I had a tremendous fear of needles. However, the very first treatment, I noticed pain went away. It was incredibly beneficial. So that was the first experience I had. So if I were to tell a patient to try, I think it's really about how you're going to feel on the other end. So it can be incredibly beneficial to help with sleep. It can help with pain. It can even help with boosting energy. It can just help with an overall regulating, like, good feeling in the body. So I think once you kind of take that first step, it will open up and people will really be more receptive to it. And then I think the other thing too is, I think what Sue alluded to was with the food. I love that they're doing these vegetable care packages. I don't know how often that is, but if you can try to embrace more organic whole foods in your diet, which may be very different to something that you're already doing, but the more you can do those types of things, it's very nutritive and it's nutritious, but it's also nourishing your cells. So the whole thing is, you're trying to do that grounding process I mentioned earlier. And when we're eating grounding foods that come from the ground, like carrots and potatoes and sweet potatoes, we really start to feel that peace. And so, you know, this is kind of like a holistic way to think about it, but just trying to get as close to what's actually found in nature as possible, I think, is the best thing.
I love that you just said that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love that she just talked about, because food is medicine, and we give our women the Cancer Fighting Kitchen Cookbook, which the first 40 pages is just like gold, you know, and it goes through the food and the ingredients and the properties and the nutrient density. And then all of a sudden, when you are eating that food, you feel grounded, like you talked about. You feel empowered. You understand how, you know, certain foods can actually have, you know, this effect on you that can help you emotionally and physically feel better. Food is our medicine, you know, we lost track of that.
Comfort
That
food.
cookbook is awesome.
It's a
That
great cookbook.
Cancer Fighting Kitchen by Rebecca Katz.
Yeah.
It's
Great
incredible.
book.
And what I love about that approach, like you mentioned in the beginning, it talks about the spices and the foods, and you get educated on what you're eating, and you get to make it. So I watched her do a cooking demonstration years ago at the hospital. And one of the things I loved is that all the recipes were easy. So someone who doesn't like to cook like me, or you don't have time, it's super easy. So, and nutritious.
And
Yeah,
Sue does
totally.
cooking lessons. You guys do cooking lessons, right? How
We
often?
do. Yeah, our registered dietitian team is extraordinary, and we're growing it. And now, you know, being able to bring someone on that's Latina and speaks Spanish to our women, because we have now a Spanish speaking only wellness day. But they'll do, like, from the basics, and these great cooking, they get us giddy about vegetables, you know, and they're so dynamic. But they're doing TikToks. We're meeting our women on social media. We are meeting them on Facebook, on Instagram, on, you know, on just one-on-one, actually, consults, just like we talked about, Valencia, and doing yoga. We do that with their cooking, or we're in their kitchen, you know, and pop up your screen and cook with them one-on-one through a Zoom call, and then pay for their vegetables and their food shopping list, so that they can actually, you know, have just more resources in order to get that nutrient dense food. So cooking is key, you know, and knowing that love that goes into it. I watch, you know, Erin and Michelle and Christina's cooking classes, and they become support groups. They really do. The women are so engaged and so loving, and takes their mind off of their cancer, you know, and they're just trying to figure out another way to heal in a way that just builds them up, right? Builds them up. And food can build you up when you feel that empowerment behind it, that it's actually working to heal your body. And it's retraining that mind.
Free, you're giving away for free.
Yeah.
I love
I
that,
know.
because one of the things that it became more apparent to me, because I was a person who would eat out more often than I probably should, but when you can cook and prepare it for yourself, it's not just that it's healthier, but what you mentioned, there's this empowerment piece, the energy piece that you're able to put into your prep, into the food. There's a symbiotic relationship between food and you, and it is incredibly grounding and healing. And it's something that, you know, as a clinician, I kind of missed that boat a few years back because I was so busy, and you're just kind of on the go. But I think bringing attention to that is also very powerful.
Food is
Yeah.
love. Food is love.
Food is love.
Yeah.
Totally.
Love. It is love.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you do when you can't eat or your food doesn't taste like food or you have no appetite?
It's
or
like
you-
ghetto.
How
Yeah.
do you get back in touch with your body, Valencia? How do we get back?
Oh, everything you guys are saying is just spot on because my oncologist introduced me to these types of things. And this is in 2006 now. In 2006,
Good.
she was taking this integrative approach with me. I was like her clinical trial patient, really. And she introduced me to everything. She bought books for me. She provided me with the yoga, and what in turn it helped my entire family. Everything
Right.
that your company is doing, Sue, when these women are cooking or whoever, like my mother was here a lot doing the food preparation. She was providing that healthy, nutritious food for the
Mhm.
entire family.
Well,
My 4 kids needed that when I was going through treatment. My 4 kids were introduced to yoga as a result of me being introduced to yoga and the breath work and all the things that kids have to deal with testing and school anxiety and friends and whatever, everything that I learned on my cancer journey, I shared it with my kids so that they can take it into their daily lives, and they're now living it, which is just the most remarkable thing about the fact that I'm
Yeah.
still alive is remarkable, because she told me I probably wouldn't make it to 5 years. And then the fact that everything that I've learned, everything you guys are talking about, I had acupuncture last week and I had the cupping behind it. So I had the acupuncture and the cupping, amazing. And I'm
No,
sitting
you're
there,
lucky.
I'm doing my deep breathing so that I can feel the needles. It's like I wanted to really feel them. I wanted to get all that I could out of that session because I don't go that often. But these are things that I learned through reading, through what my oncologist gave me, through even the practice of going to yoga, right? There's so many teachers and there's so many people who are in this space of health and wellness and healing, and they just, oh, Valencia, you should take this and you should do this. And it's like, I just took it all in because
you were a
when
baby.
someone,
You were a baby. You were 30.
I was a baby, I was 33. And when somebody tells you that you may not make it 5 years, you
Yeah.
change. For me, I had to change the things I was doing. I was a
How old were
classroom
your
teacher,
babies? How old were your babies? Yeah.
3, 4, 5, and 8. So I had to incorporate everything that you guys are talking. I stopped eating meat for a time. I just stopped because I'm like, okay, if she's telling me that I should lessen the amount of meat, well, I'm just gonna stop eating it altogether because less is more, you know? So yes, I'm still here 16 years later, and I'm just really trying. My sister was diagnosed after me. Now I have an aunt who is metastatic. So it's a family history. So I even share everything with my family because it's like so many of them are obese, and it's like we have to do better. I mean, there are things that we can do, that are in our control that we can do to mitigate cancer. You know, maybe we will have it, but maybe not if you change and do these things now versus when you get a diagnosis. And it's not even about the cancer, it's about having a better quality of life every single day of your life.
I love that you said that because, no one can predict what's coming, although sometimes people do have mutations and other things, but you can do what's in your control, what's in, and what we can control, what we put in our mouths, right? We can control how we react to things sometimes, and hopefully more times we can
Emotionally.
control the thoughts that we think,
Right.
right? We can control what we do with our
Right.
bodies. And like I tell my patients, this is the thing to focus on as
Right.
you look at what do I do for prevention? What do I do in survivorship? How do I get my life back? It has a lot to do with those principles. You can't predict, but we can try to optimize whatever it is, that wellness, that peace of mind, that sense of joy, that sense of control and empowerment, because, you know, the cancer journey is all about not being in control and learning to be okay with that. And that's a tough, tough life lesson.
Yeah, it is tough. I always say that, you know, cancer ended up being my best teacher. It's my best teacher. I learned so much, and you know, we treat thousands of women, you know, and we don't know how come it affects, you know, one over another. And when you lose all that control and that confidence, these are things that you can put back in your life that give you control, that
Right.
give you those good days, that give you, because that's what you're searching for, is just to have that control back, that you get to choose again. And especially when you've been rocked, you know, and trying to wonder that negative chatter, like, how did this happen? What did I, as women, we go, what did I
What did I
do?
do?
And we can't do that. We can't do that, right? Like, no blame, no judgment. Let's meet you where you are
Right.
and figure out what we can do to, you know, control some of the emotions, some of the physical side effects, the mouth sores, the bone pain, the headaches, the negative chatter. Um, I love what everyone is saying here, because it is so, it's so important that we have that, you know, sense of well-being. Wellness is an active motion. You have to be active. You have to be active in order to take part in it. You really
Yeah.
do have to, you know, engage. It just doesn't come, you know, you have to really think about it and put your mind to it. And look at the practice you've been doing, Valencia. Like, you love it. You love it,
And you
right?
have to plan it. You know, it's like I plan my yoga classes. You have to plan your meals. You have to plan, you have to carve out time for the things that are going to uplift you, make you feel better, make you have more energy. I mean, it's just like you can't just, it can't be an afterthought. It has to be planned, and you have to take advantage of each moment of every day to carve out time to. Last night I did the sound bath, triple negative breast
Yeah.
cancer
Yeah. Yeah.
foundation. Yeah,
Great.
yeah, with Mel in
Yeah.
DC
Mhm,
area.
Right.
mhm.
I saw that and I'm like, oh, I love sound baths. And these things were introduced to me
Never heard of it.
taking yoga, right? I would
Mm,
have never known what the sound bath
Mm,
was.
yep.
You
mhm.
Mhm.
just don't, but the crystal balls and just the meditative state that you are in as you're listening to the music, as you're lying there. And see, that was hard for me, being a mother of 4 and being a high school teacher. That was one thing my doctor kept saying, you got to slow down. You have to slow down. We think we have to be super women and do all these things. When you get that diagnosis, you just say, okay. I mean, when you're going through treatment, you can't do everything. When you're going to chemo, when you're
Yeah.
having your surgeries, you're not doing all the thousands of things that you would normally be doing. So that was an aha moment for me to say, okay, what can I take off? You have to stop, and you have to realign and refocus on your health. You
You
just
do.
have to.
You have
And
to.
that's so hard for so many people,
So
people
hard.
that I try to talk to and mentor. And I just took a young lady to, she had a double mastectomy. I drove to Orlando, an hour from my house, to take her to her follow-up appointment, to meet with her doctor. And she has a 16-year-old son, and she's just going a mile a minute. I said, stop. You have to calm down. You are just, you gotta stop talking. I had to tell her, stop talking. She's a Haitian lady. So it's like, you gotta calm down. You have to bring it down a notch. And I was that hyperactive person too. But I've learned to breathe and to center myself and not talk as much, because it's not serving you. It's not serving you. So yeah.
Yeah, for me too, I was one of these people before I had cancer. I used to get sinus headaches all the time. And so I would always take a pill. Like, where's the Advil? Where's the Tylenol? Whatever. And even like I had the slow pain, I would take a pill. And I know, I think there's some of us who like take a pill to solve everything, just throw a pill at it, right? Or some of us don't want to take a pill. But when I started going through chemo, I did not want to take another pill. And when I had the nausea and all the side effects, first I was like, okay, what pill can I take? And then I was like, I don't want to take another pill. I've like got all these pills in the stupid pill box and the chemo and all this stuff. What can I do that's not a pill? Like to get rid of this headache or to get rid of this nausea. And that's when I started exploring, okay, are there some things I can do because I didn't want to take another pill. I felt like I was drugged up. So
Yeah.
what could I do differently? And it made me start cooking differently and eating differently to try to get rid of the nausea. Like I started doing I'm done with Zofran. I need something that's going to make me feel better. That's not a pill.
The
And
ginger mints. Ginger mints.
Ginger mints, man, they were my jam. Ginger mints, ginger tea. That was probably the first thing I did was the ginger mints and the ginger tea. But I think if there's a way to not have to take more medication when you're sick with cancer to take care of yourself, it's awesome. It's awesome. I started craving carrots and zucchini for whatever reason. And I had no taste buds, but
Yeah.
I think it was like the crunch of a carrot, the texture
Yeah.
that it was like I couldn't taste it, but I could feel it. So, I started
Yeah.
craving carrots.
I feel like one of the things that you were talking about, Valencia, is like how do you there's so many of us that just can't get ourselves up. It's devastating. It's a disease that puts you down. It puts you down, and that's where you want to ask for help. You want to reach out to your resources. You want to not feel like as women we can do it all. That you can utilize your resources around you, and that's where we find Unite for Her in this space, that we help them plan their meals. We help them plan their day, their yoga class, their one-on-one 5-minute yoga routine, like little steps, because we know that type of behavior is normal as well with a cancer diagnosis. There's no not normal, because everybody is different on how they react and how they end up, just reacting to this new, normal and devastating disease. And we have to meet them where they are. And that's so important to, call out, because not everybody can lift themselves up. And that's what we're here for. And that's what, your ambassadors are there for. And people like you that get on the phone and say, hey, you gotta slow down, because we're there to help each other lift up.
Yeah. We have a question from our baby breasty Latoya, who we love. She's fighting the fight like a girl with triple negative right now. And she's saying, well, I'm a vegan. I'm really healthy. I do all the right stuff. I'm fit and I still got breast cancer. Like, what can you do for me? And I mean, I think I was one of the healthiest people I know when I got breast cancer. So I don't think, that's always a factor, but
I think we have to, one, define health in broader terms, because I heard you say, Ricky, many times that you think stress brought about your breast cancer, right? And so there's a component of wellness that stress is a part of it, right? It's mind, body, and spirit are connected. And so I think, a lot of times we look at our diet or we look at our weight and assume that we're healthy, but it isn't always the case, for one. And two, there are a lot of things that we just don't know about why breast cancer develops, and it isn't to place blame. We don't look at those things as a placing of blame. We try to figure out what are the modifiable risk factors. Where can we start to reduce risk? Are we eating good food? Are we getting good rest? Do we have peace of mind? Are we addressing the whole person? And even when all those things are completely balanced to the best of our abilities, cancer still happens. And it's one of the hardest conversations that I have with patients who feel like they're completely healthy. They're like, well, I already, my body fat's this. I already exercise 5 times a week. My diet is this. I don't drink, I drink water all day long. And how do you help those people? And Dr. Aisha, I want to pull you into this conversation, and I want to ask you about us taking an honest assessment, right? Is there anything that you do as far as an intake and helping a person to really look honestly at their life, at their diet, at their, the different components? Because everybody seems, we all think we're doing pretty okay, the best that we can, but how do you begin to assess a person to see what their needs might be from a naturopathic standpoint?
Great question. So I think for me, I always try to get a picture, get a glimpse of who that person is, where they come from, how they were raised, what they've experienced, because those things too can lead to how you frame up as an adult. So people who have had adverse childhood experiences, people who have had some tremendous pain and hurt and trauma, these are not things that, you know, it's like, oh, that went away, that happened at this point, it's over. There may be things that are deep seated, some could be subconscious, that need to be resolved. And I also think, you know, just looking at this from an environmental perspective, because my training is extra in environmental medicine and detoxification. So that's not just taking a tea and having a lot of bowel movements. I'm talking about detoxification from the standpoint of our liver is what's doing the work to make sure that when we, let's say you're standing outside and you're waiting for a bus and we smell those fumes of exhaust from buses and cars, those are chemicals that we inhale that we shouldn't, right? So it should not be assumed that we're just getting rid of everything that we could come in contact with. And so I think the point of eating healthy and drinking the water and doing the yoga and all of that stuff is helping us to allow our bodies to detoxify. When we don't do those things and we have the stress on top of it, it makes it harder for our body to detox, harder for our body to relax and heal. So I think, you know, for me, when I meet with the patient, it's looking at the holistic picture, right? So that environmental piece is huge to me, because if the detoxification isn't working properly, a lot of people are walking around, they may not define themselves as being constipated, but they're not having the regularity that we would like.
Right.
So those types of things, drinking water, making sure everything's flowing, right? And getting the nutritious stuff in. So it's a holistic picture that I look at, and it takes a little bit of time. And sometimes it doesn't happen at the first visit. It happens by having a relationship with the patient. And over time, sometimes people feel more comfortable to say, look, this happened to me 25 years ago. I just never told anybody. And we start to uncover and go through the healing process that's really needed.
Wow.
And we can't forget about how many people will be diagnosed that live in Flint, Michigan with the water crisis that they have.
Right.
How many, and I'm gonna say it this, how many Black people live in areas that are toxic, period?
Right.
How many poor people? How
Right.
many indigenous people
Right.
live in areas, and
Right.
that could be the cause? I mean, that's a huge part of it.
Contributory. You know, it is contributory. You know, I practice in an area where they mine uranium in 1910. Right, there's a nuclear power plant not 20 miles from here, and the lake, you know, near me is the word Latin for lead. It means Lake Lead, right? Lake Galena means Lake Lead.
Do people go in it?
And we wonder, yeah, they do. And I'm sure they've taken strides over the years. There's been a lot of environmental attention paid, but my point is that, you know, what about the people who don't know those things or whose environments are not cognizant of that? The power lines, the water, there's so many contributory factors. And I think, you know, Valencia, it's why it really underscores the importance of trying to optimize your wellness right where you are with whatever you got, you know, because you may live in a food desert. You may be in a place where you don't necessarily have access to, you know, to yoga or acupuncture or massage, and you may be able to get some of those services. You may be able to do some of that stuff at home. I mean, COVID has really helped us to be able to do so much more in our homes, you know. And Sue, I know I'm going to pull you in because I know that you had to pivot and go virtual, right? Because a lot of the services that you provided were in-person services. What happened during COVID, and what did you learn from it?
Oh boy, we reinvented ourselves. That's what we did. And a team that was absolutely incredible at just learning how to take, you know, something that was adverse and changing into opportunity. And for us, like, we built a whole digital platform. We ended up doing our conferences like this, you know, with our speakers front and center on the different modalities. We have providers that would do online type of therapies. You know, counseling took an uptick because people actually felt more comfortable in their bedroom on their phone talking to somebody than going somewhere, right? Or yoga, there wasn't this stigma with yoga that you had to, you know, just do this incredible exercise, like they can meet you where you are. And cooking, and we mailed everything to the home, and that was key. Like, they knew that Unite for Her stayed steady, you know, that we were still there. And to be able to put everything right to the home, we also broke down barriers that way. We used to have so many barriers when we were in person. people who just aren't feeling good. They couldn't come to the well. You were there, Dr. Mo. It's a long day, right? Like they just didn't feel good. They couldn't make it.
Transportation
They didn't
issues,
have
childcare
transportation.
issues. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. You
Childcare,
know, services
work
were
issues.
suburban and you live in the city. How do you get
You
there?
got it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So now all of a sudden they can pop on anywhere. They can look at a recording. That helped us go national. That again, I talk about being the best teacher. COVID was a good teacher for us, and then all this devastation that occurred during this pandemic for so many. For Unite for Her, we found it to be a teacher that we could open up our arms even more. But we had to think different, and I don't think we would have ever have thought this way if it didn't occur. And now we can go
Ricky,
anywhere in the nation.
it's
Right,
true.
right.
Ricky, we wouldn't be here, you know,
We
if
wouldn't
it
be
hadn't,
here.
if it
Right.
hadn't
We
been for
wouldn't be
COVID.
here.
None
We
of
wouldn't
this.
be able
We
to
would
have
not
these, we wouldn't be able to have these conversations and reach some people that we're reaching, you know, but even with yoga, like I always felt like uncomfortable going to yoga class because I grew up taking ballet, and to me it's like anti-ballet, like just the whole turnout. And so I would be embarrassed to be around all these women who were like, like Valencia, who were like sticking their legs up in the air and doing all these great things, and I felt like a sucker. But now I can do it in my house and nobody's watching, and like I can watch people do it on Zoom, and I feel more comfortable to do it in my house by myself. I don't have to wear the cute clothes. I can wear my pajamas.
That's right.
And
That's
it's like,
right.
having the opportunity to not have to go anywhere and get benefits is great. And these benefits is great. So actually, before we got on air, before you guys came on, Valencia and Sue were talking about Valencia's going to go maybe teach yoga for Sue, which
I
would be
love
fun,
it. Oh,
right?
that's
Yeah.
great.
Wow.
No, it's
Yeah.
so important, and
Yeah.
for us to be able to have teachers that can meet our women with just a 5-minute small routine. I mean, that's what I did when I was sick. It wasn't like, I had to do all these crazy movements. It's good for everybody. Everybody can do it in a chair, standing up. And it was the power of breath and the negative chatter that I had to get rid of because it was so in my head, and
Yeah.
just a young woman diagnosed and just hoping I could get through. And that power of breath, that's the old, 1,000-year-old yoga practice, is knowing how to get to that point. And then you add the movement to the breath. And it's this beautiful, well choreographed dance that you create yourself. Nobody's watching, right? And
Right.
it just allows you to do this movement that can really quiet your mind. That helped me with nausea, yoga. Zofran, Compuzen, Meritrol. There was no medical marijuana at the time.
Breathing, right? That too.
Yoga. That was what
I love
did
that
it
you
for me.
said it's good for everybody, literally everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah, right.
Correct.
Everybody's body, like
Everybody's body.
Dr.
Yeah.
Aisha, can I ask you a question? And then Valencia, I'll get you in here too. Actually, I'll let you go on that subject. Dr. Aisha, my question for you is about people who think that naturopathic medicine is out of their budget, out of their access wheel, and what are some of the ways that we're trying to combat some of that? But Valencia, I want you to go back and finish up on yoga for us.
Want Valencia go first? Go ahead.
Yes, she was going to say something.
Oh, yes. Well, she was talking about the breath. And oh my God, breathing is so important. And if people could just breathe properly, and I'm going to read this, I know it, but I don't want to mess up. It's starting around the age of 30, the bones in our lungs and our chest, they become thinner and they collapse inward. So by the time we reach the age of 50, we've lost 12% of our breathing capacity. And then the speed up continues. We just keep losing. That's why there are older people who have those sleep machines and all of that. And we're forced to breathe faster and harder, making it difficult just to catch a breath. But it's not all bad news. Unlike problems with other parts of our body, such as our liver or our kidneys, we can improve the airways in our two small mouths and reverse the entropy in our lungs at any age. We can do this by breathing properly. So they did a 70-year research focused on heart disease. They gathered 2 decades of data from 5,200 subjects. The greatest indicator of lifespan wasn't genetics, diet, or the amount of daily exercise, as many had suspected. It was lung capacity. Larger lungs equaled longer lives because big lungs allow us to breathe in, get in more air with fewer breaths. They save the body from a lot of unnecessary wear and tear. That's the first step in understanding how our bodies can really heal themselves. And Sue, you just said it with the breathing. When I went to yoga, I couldn't do anything because of I had 5 surgeries on my chest, but they did teach me how to breathe. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your nose, not your mouth. So this entire book by James Nestor on breathing, he talks about it as it relates to COVID. So Dr. Mo, you know, all of these patients cannot breathe with
Right.
COVID. And oh my God, it's
Well, I need that book. Can we put that in the chat? Can we?
I will. It's fantastic. I sent it to my mom. I've sent it to so many people because this is the key. And it's a part of the yoga practice, the breath work. It's just amazing. When we breathe the way I'm talking, in through the nose, out through the nose, we can better protect the lungs from irritation and infections while boosting circulation to the brain and the body. Stress on the heart relaxes, the respiratory and nervous systems enter a state of coherence where everything functions at peak efficiency. Just a few minutes of breathing, of inhaling and exhaling at this pace can drop blood pressure by 10, even 15 points.
Wow, wow.
Amazing. I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Yep, I'm putting it, I got it.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that book. I'm going to check that out myself. But you're right. And I've personally witnessed that shift that can happen just from breathing. And especially if I'm dealing with the patient, it could be anxiety, just a lot going on, even grief. Just that breath, just that pause, say a prayer. I mean, it can be done simultaneously, right, together.
Yeah.
But that can help someone to pivot and shift literally in 30 seconds. I've taught it to my sister's kids, same thing. I mean, just because they can get really, you know, with whatever it is. So just that pivoting. So Dr. Mo had asked me about accessibility for integrative medicine. So that's a tricky thing. And that's why I'm so happy that Sue is on the call, because as it is right now, it's generally an out-of-pocket cost for someone to see a naturopathic doctor, right? There are a few states, depending on the licensability, where insurance does cover naturopathic visits, but that's definitely not nationwide. So, you know, what I would say to someone in that position, I think calls like this are helpful. I think some of the books like The Cancer Fighting Kitchen, I think doing things, if you're kind of just doing things on your own. I mean, I wasn't always a naturopathic doctor. I became one because I was doing things on my own when I was like 22. And wow. You know, just having digestive issues and getting tested for this and that, and nobody knowing what was wrong. And I'm just reading. I just started to read about food and making a connection. So I think in starting where you are, just with the resources, with the books are helpful. Even YouTube can be helpful. There's meditative videos on YouTube. You know, there's even soft meditative music you can play at night before you sleep. That's what I do. You know, not by your head, not under your pillow with that phone, but across the room, letting it play to keep yourself. So there's some things that you can do that can help with that calm. And I think once you start to make little shifts, there's another really cool technique I can tell you about, and it's called grounding. So like, even if you go to like a park where there's lots of green grass and trees, as long as it's not been sprayed with pesticides, it's great to just get out there and connect with nature, right? That's free. So if you have an area that you can get to, and even if you don't have one right in your neighborhood, but you know of a nice park, just connecting with that tree, with the earth, sit in the ground. This is free. So these are things that help us to release the negative charged energy in our body back to the earth. So it's one of those things where I love to be on these shows. I love to talk to people because maybe there's someone out there that might hear just that one thing that will help to shift something free, right? So that's kind of where I would start. It's difficult because of the accessibility with seeing providers, but if you're an integrative provider. I think that's changing, and we're actually working on trying to change that in the next few years. But right now, it's a little challenging. So thanks.
That's great. That's where Sue comes in, because she can provide these things
Yeah.
for free, you know, so.
Yeah,
maybe
that's what
they
we do our
provide-
fundraising for, to be able to get access. That's what I found, you know, when I was sick and diagnosed and going through all of this. I had the funds to spend out of pocket. $6,000 I spent out of pocket that year. That is just not accessible. And that's where
Wow.
Unite for Her can come in and go, you know what, we can cover that for you, you know, and that's what we do all of our fundraising for. That was my aha moment, where we're like, oh my gosh, not everybody can get access to this. What am I thinking? You know, shame on me that people can't get access. And I'm thinking that I'm going to give people these tools and share, and can't do it. You know, they can't do it. So
Right.
we're honored to serve and you know, do all that fundraising to get them right to the women and
Right.
men.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and Sue
Yes,
reached out to me over a year ago to basically say, you know, we have all this great stuff, but I need some Black women I want to give it to. So like, we got you, we have them. So, you know.
But I want to say one thing too. When I did my acupuncture and my cupping last Wednesday, I think it was a week ago, I used my flexible spending card.
Hey.
So there's an idea for people. You know, you got to save somehow with your taxes. So having that medical, and the lady was like, well, I don't know if it's going to take, but it did. And I was so excited to find someone who takes
Who will take your
that. So
card.
that's another option for people who insurance won't cover, their flexible
Yeah.
spending card.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
And I think
Yeah,
also
it's good.
in like just talking, you know, going on Unite for Her and seeing what you like. So like if you like Reiki or you like yoga or you like these recipes, and then saying, okay, I'm willing to invest in this thing because I like it a lot. So maybe take the free
Mhm.
services as an exploratory opportunity to learn about the services that you provide. And then maybe, okay, Dr. Aisha, I can buy one of you, or I can buy one of these things from you and afford it, or I can try to get help with that. So
You know, last time we
Yeah.
did this show, I think Lakia Belcher was on, and she said
Lakia.
just that.
It was.
She said she had never really heard of, you know,
Mhm.
Reiki, really. She kind of heard of it, but she didn't know what it was. She'd never
Right.
tried or even thought
Right.
about things like acupuncture, acupressure, and Unite for Her was a wonderful way to gain exposure
The
into
knowledge.
things.
Right. Get introduced.
Exactly. People think that, oh, it's not for me, it's
Yeah.
for somebody else, or it's not going to
Mhm.
help me, or, you know, or those needles are going to hurt, and they haven't tried it for themselves. And you know,
Yeah.
it's a great way to really get that exposure. So
Right.
yeah,
I remember
Mhm.
Lakia was just all about to cooking. You know, cooking is love for her, you know,
Yes.
and
you
right in
love-
her kitchen, and to re-look at the way that she ended up cooking her meals. She didn't know, you know, it was going to happen so quickly, but she ended up just revitalizing her whole entire diet, and it was all through, you know, the care of the diagnosis as well, and trying to meet those side effects and symptoms. And I think she dropped 70 pounds and
Right.
getting more vegetables, and her kids are cooking with her, and it's a family affair, just like
Right.
what you said, Valencia. It's a family affair. So Unite for Her didn't stop at Lakia. It went through all to her children and her husband and loved ones.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, just being able to just take that on as, oh, I can do that. Just like the breathing. Everybody breathes, right? Like
Right.
I can do that different. I can take my shoes off in the grass. I can
Right.
get sleep. Can you imagine, Dr. Mo, if you're writing prescriptions for people to have sleep?
Oh,
Like
I
sleep
do.
is so
That's
key,
right.
right?
Sleep
I
is
write
so-
it
It's
out. We
just,
don't even use script pads anymore, but I will write it on a
oh,
script pad.
write it
Eat
out,
good
right?
food,
Like
get good rest,
sleep.
sleep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love
You
that.
can't underestimate that. And that was a hot button for me. I underestimated that. You know, if you're not eating, you're not sleeping, and you're, you know, you're very stressed and trying to control things you can't, get
And,
unbalanced.
and one thing in this era that I didn't have to worry about in 2006, we have to practice digital wellness, right? We got to unplug from our devices. I mean, and there's a study that
About
said
that.
that
Yeah.
2 hours before bedtime, it's like you need to disconnect starting with 2 hours before bedtime. No TV, no phone. I read a lot, so I can get maybe a chapter or two read before I fall asleep, you know, and we just have to use social media mindfully because you can just get caught up.
Right.
And so many people are basically addicted to those
Addicted
types of
and-
things, and it impairs everything we're talking about. You on social media, you don't want to go cook because you've been on scrolling. You're on social media and then you don't exercise. You're on social media and you can't sleep. It's so many things that are happening now that people just really, really, really need to be mindful about. And it's so, especially our kids, our children, oh my God, you know, so that's one piece we didn't mention that I really think we need to, we need an electronic detox.
Yeah, Dr. Aisha said, I'm putting that in the comments. Aisha said, electronic detox.
I love that. I'm going to challenge my office and challenge myself to do that. Lindsay, can I ask you a question about yoga and about body types and about, rather than the exception, normalizing the different shapes and body types and styles that people have that makes yoga for them and not just, well, we'll modify it for you or you're an exception to it. Because I know a lot of women, particularly those of us who are obese, for example, or overweight, right? And we feel like our bodies, or maybe we're just not the most graceful people, like Ricky said, you know,
Right.
she's a dancer, she's graceful in a different way. But for
How with
people who
yoga.
think that yoga is not for them
Well,
because
they
of their
just have to-
body.
Right. So they have to embrace their body. You know, you just got to love the body you're in. If you're not happy with your weight, if you're not happy with whatever, then you just need to start making some changes, period. But it doesn't matter what size you are. The benefits of the movement with the breath are just so amazing. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, I just don't know what I would have done without my yoga. I really don't know. I know that it got to a point where it's like something exuded through my entire body. And I think it really was a detox. After all of the chemo, after all of the trauma with the surgeries, I was feeling these sensations in my body, and it just kind of literally moved through my body all the way through to my feet, you know. And I it's like it was an amazing feeling, but you wouldn't know this until you started the practice, and you got to be consistent with it, you know. So, and it's hard because I've been doing yoga for 15 years, right? It's hard. People tell me all the time, girl, I can't do that. I said, that's not the goal. The goal is not to do what you see me doing on Facebook. The goal is to just move. And with my bones, this is one thing my oncologist taught me. With my bones, from having my ovaries removed, from having my breasts removed, I have to build my bones. What better way to do that than with the practice of yoga, with my own body weight, right? I'm gonna say plank, but I know people can't get there, but just challenging yourself until you get to the point. I can hold a 3-minute plank. I was at the YSC conference and it was all breast cancer survivors, and she challenged us and I held plank. It was 2 of us still standing, still on the floor, 3 minutes. Who can hold plank for 3 minutes?
You.
But people think you just gotta try it and do a little bit, and just your body, you will feel your body getting stronger. You will feel your core engagement. You will feel yourself getting stronger. You just will. And I mean, that's the best I can say it, but most people are not consistent enough because most people are not going through what we're going through. We're going through a life or death situation. They told Ricky 2 years. My doctor told me 5 years. So I am going to do this yoga. I am going to master this. I am going to keep trying because I want to live. So for people who haven't gone through life-altering circumstances, it's different for them to understand.
Show us how to breathe, Valencia. Give us like
I'm inspired. I'm just taking deep breaths, just listening to you talk. I feel like I want to. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you what I have here. I have my little diffuser, right? because you got to set the atmosphere.
Yes.
I have a bolster. Now, you don't have to have a bolster. You could just lie on your back, or you can sit. I know you can't see my head now, huh? But so I'm gonna lie on my bolster. And you just get comfortable. You can use pillows, you can use blocks, you can use whatever. And sometimes they will invite you to put one hand over your heart, one hand over your belly, or you can just open up. And your breath work is so simple because we're always breathing through our nose, breathing through our mouth because we're talking, we're laughing, we're eating. But the concept of inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your nose, the goal is to inhale 3, 4, 5 counts, and then make your exhalation longer than your inhalation. So if you're inhaling for 3, you want that exhalation to be at least 3 counts, 4 counts. And that's another thing that it's practice. I could not breathe the way I breathe now when I was fresh out of chemo, when I had all this trauma to my chest. It takes time. But as that article says, and as this book says, that is the best way to advance, to lengthen your longevity in life, is your breathing. So
Why do you have to breathe out through your nose? What's the difference between mouth and nose?
You're breathing through your nose, you're inhaling everything through your nose. Because the article says it's something about our mouths, it's something about our teeth and the structure of our mouths. Girl, this book is just so amazing. You got to read it to understand that concept, because I can't explain it the way he does. But it's something about, and even with babies, different cultures, when the babies are breathing, they close their mouths. They close their mouths so that the child can get, this is like a cultural thing in some cultures. They live longer lives because they have practiced. They even put the little surgical, not the surgical tape, but the little tape over their mouth to keep their lips closed. Because imagine at night, you got your mouth wide open. That is so bad. That is so bad. So the best way to do it is when you're awake during the day, as you go throughout your daily business, the best way to breathe, because at night, unless you're taping your lips, you don't know if your mouth is wide open. So let's just
Maybe taping my lips will help me stop snoring.
Yeah, it will. So these guys, they're in a clinical trial, and it goes through everything that a clinical trial goes through, and it blows your mind, the evidence of all the people who are in this study and the different ailments that they have, and how just shifting your breathing through your nose, inhaling, exhaling through your nose, just transforms their entire bodies. So we're gonna breathe?
Yeah.
So inhale. Exhale. And I just tell my students to just breathe at their own pace. You know, we do this at the beginning of every yoga class. Just, they already know they're gonna start lying down, breathing, or sitting up, breathing. And you're setting an intention for that moment, for that class session. And you're just trying to block out everything around you. Most people, I know I pray. This is my time to just pray. And you should hear your breath. You will get to the point where you can audibly hear the sound of your breath.
It is pretty amazing. Wow.
You're watching us, we're breathing.
And
Hey,
it
you
feels
should be
so
too.
good. Breathe with us. Oh my God, it feels so good.
Who knew?
Right, who would have thought that breathing was just like,
Oh.
wow.
And
Wow.
you know what? I feel invigorated because I got to tell you, I came in from a full day and I was just feeling kind of rushed and sort of not in my body, right? And just those few minutes
Fresh.
of,
Wow.
of breathing has
Wow.
granted me a feeling of rest and of peacefulness,
Right,
right?
right,
But I
right.
also feel a little bit charged, like, okay, let me gather my thoughts. Let me get
Totally.
ready for my evening. I'm ready to be a productive person and not just veg out on my sofa for the rest of the night. Like there's some things I need to get done. And so maybe I'm going to go cook that meal or go do meal prep for tomorrow, get my smoothies ready, do something. But I just feel better.
Sure.
Thank you. Oh, I needed this.
That was
Yeah.
great. And Sue, give me-
Everyone
Vibes.
should read this book. Everyone should read this
Okay.
book.
Yeah, I'm
It's
totally getting it.
life-changing. It is
Mhm.
life-changing.
and Sue can do this for free. So I put uniteforher.org in the comments. So
Yeah.
reach out, and there's a page on our website where you can sign up for the program, right? And get
Mhm.
$2,000 worth of services for free. How cool is that? Including
Truly.
vegetables. And if you have questions for Dr. Aisha, email me. My email, it's in the comments, I'll put it, and we'll hook you up with her services. And Valencia, go teach for Sue and they can watch your class and we can hook it with Valencia. And well, I feel better.
And I want to get all
Yeah.
you guys up
I
here
wanna
at the farm
dance.
for a day. Let's
I know, we
do
gotta
it.
do the
Let's
farm.
let's
I know.
have a day of healing.
I can't
up here.
wait. I can't
Valencia's
wait.
already planning her farm visit at our
Yes,
next.
I
know, we
can't wait
gotta
to go
work
to
on
her
our next
family
retreat.
farm.
Yeah,
But
we gotta go to our
Sue
next
and I, we're neighbors. So yeah, we got to get everybody up, all
Yeah.
the breasties, and we're gonna
Yeah,
do
I
it
can
again.
do it.
Yeah,
We're
time
gonna
for
do a day.
Mhm.
Yoga, meditation. We'll get Dr. Aisha up here, cooking demonstrations.
some
Let's
cooking.
I'll cook.
do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Mhm.
Wow. Well,
Right.
you know,
Thank
you
you.
we just want to thank you guys because Unite for Her has been an amazing and continues to be an amazing resource that is ever expanding. So, we welcome your donations to the site. We want you to visit. We want you to utilize it. Share this message. Share the videos. Tag a friend because if you know someone who's facing a cancer diagnosis, breast or ovarian
Yeah.
cancer particularly, that this is a resource that is going to really bless their lives. So,
Yeah.
thank you guys.
Thank you
You're
guys.
welcome. Thank
And
you.
thank you to our sponsors. We
Yeah.
hope it's been relatable and reliable and real. It's what we set out to do every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock on Black Doctor. So here we are for episode 102.
102.
Amazing.
Holy cow.
I know, Bryce, and we're gonna start talking
That
about
was
bone
it.
health soon in our bone stuff. So look out for
Yeah,
that.
Love
so
it.
good.
There it
Breast
is with your
love.
heart,
Yo-
our breasty love.
Yoga helps
Yoga,
with bone health.
bones. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
Breast
Got to do our
love.
heart to our breasty love.
Yeah. See
Mhm.
you next week. Thank you guys so much.
There it is.
Blessings to all. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. I'm gonna
Bye-bye.
breathe more. I'm going dancing.
Free natural high, power of breath.
Yeah.